Look who finally dragged themselves in out of the wasteland. And where have we been, Crawling through pits of radioactive muck again? Ah, the meat has returned. Lovely. Go on. You've wasted enough of my valuable time. Ugh, it's bad enough the indignities you've put me through. Must you continue to prattle on at me? No time to waste. Go deal with the think tank. Oh, don't worry about me. We can talk more when we're both back at the sink. I'll see you at the sink. Good luck. Oh, it's you again. What do you want? Well, what are you waiting for? Get moving and leave me in peace. Nice to see you back. I trust the adventuring is going well. Really? I didn't expect you to actually agree to that. I'm afraid that was a bit of a bluff, really. I'm not going with you. Right, a deal it is then. Glad to hear it. I'm not going to lie to you. The prospect is definitely not that appealing. Look at it from my perspective. Here I have peace, quiet, and safety. Well, barring the odd rogue scorpion. In your head, I've got poison, radiation, grisly injuries, and biological functions. Do you know how much more you can get done when you're not constantly looking for places to urinate? It's quite a lot, I can tell you. Not much of one for the high-tech approach, are we? Well, I suppose we'd best get on with it. Yes, I don't think you've quite thought this through yet. Well, I see sarcasm hasn't eluded you. Fine, perhaps now isn't the best time, but it's the principle of the thing. Now that you mention it, I do miss that lovely rat-a-tat-boom a bit. It's just not the same without a body to feel the recoil. What's the next step, then? Yes, I think you haven't quite got the hang of punning yet. If you want me back, we need to establish some ground rules. First, showers! Second, regular checkups. Regular, mind you, and from a reputable doctor. That Julie Farkas woman, for example, she seems to know a thing or two. Third, you need to listen to me more than your hormonal choir and genitalian orchestra. Promise me that, and you've got a deal. Right. Look out, think tank. This brain is coming out of its jar. Well, you have always been thorough in your destruction. All right, what's your plan? I see, and you plan to be standing in the midst of this mayhem? Well, that's a novel strategy. Yes, well, believe me, the opposite is equally true. Good Lord, have you bathed at all since they pulled me out of you? Well, that's a completely different matter. The tank isn't biological. It's not the same at all. Overrated biological feedback. Believe me, you only feel that way because you've got all that meat. Oozing hormones. I can see there's going to be no reasoning with you at all, is there? I'm nothing more than a slave to your deranged glandular whims. Going the old-fashioned route, are we? I rather like it. What's next? Before you go that route, do me a favor and read up on the history of battles in which men with swords fought giant brains with lasers. You're trying to appeal to my ego now, aren't you? Well, let me tell you something about ego, my friend. Ego does not come from a gland. That's all intellect. And I'll be damned if I'm going to float here and let them put one over on us. What's the plan? All motivated by nothing but an imbalance in certain brain chemicals. The tank corrects for that. I feel no urge toward antisocial behavior. Are you coming on to me? Sweet Lord, I don't even have the words for how repugnantly wrong that is. With an attitude like that, it's small wonder you got yourself shot in the head. Are you coming on to me? Sweet Lord, I don't even have the words for how repugnantly wrong that is. Even if I believe you, and I'm not saying I do, we still have one significant problem we're facing. I had overlooked that particular angle. Still, it's not so bad staying here, is it? We could be comfortable. Oh, energy weapons, yes. I'd almost forgotten how much fun those are. How do we proceed, then? I hate to say it, but your ability to handle high-tech energy weapons doesn't exactly instill within me great confidence. Are you coming on to me? Sweet Lord, I don't even have the words for how repugnantly wrong that is. Are you coming on to me? Sweet Lord, I don't even have the words for how repugnantly wrong that is. Oh yes, I rather expect you have. You must have been swamped, you poor dear. Why don't you relax and put your feet up? I've just been traumatically scooped out of my body and plugged into this jar. That's all. But you've been busy. Even if I believe you, and I'm not saying I do, we still have one significant problem we're facing. I suppose there might be some advantage to that, yes. There's a chance that the reintegration would create some improved synergy between us. Good, go! Indeed, quite the conundrum. How do you suppose we resolve it? I'm not entirely sure. I suppose there's a chance that the reintegration would create some improved synergy between us. What form that might take, though, I cannot say. Oh no, please don't leave me here in this nice, safe dome where I have access to nutritive fluids and a fully indexed library. Please don't deprive me of being dragged through a landscape so bleak it was actually improved by the end of the world. I don't know how I could bear it. It's not that I didn't like being in your head, you understand. As far as heads go, it was a rather nice one. Well then, I suppose this is goodbye for now. What will you do? Yes, of course. By all means, take your time. Yes, all right, bravo. You've come up with something I neglected to consider. There'll be no living with you now. So, what do we do about this? I suppose you're right. That does call certain assumptions into question, doesn't it? I don't believe it. It's just a simple fact. One may as well believe the Earth is round or that the specific gravity of uranium is 18.9. Let me see. I suppose you'd continue on much as you are now, using that synthetic thinking machine to do the heavy lifting. Unless, of course, the batteries run out. But that seems unlikely. It's true, the brains here have experienced some degree of deterioration. I'm confident that with a few decades of work, I can solve the problem. I know it's great. Oh, what joy, what bliss. Well, seeing as how I have no leverage with which to persuade you otherwise. Are you sure? I've come to a similar conclusion myself. Are you sure that's what you want? You mean I'll stay in my tank and you'll stay in your skin? And we'll each handle our own areas of expertise? I certainly like the sound of that. Of course I accounted for that! Do you think I'm so stupid? No, you're right. Maintaining my current functionality will be harder than I thought. This bears some further looking into. Actually, yes, I do think that. I think that exact thing. All the time. Well, the important thing is that you're good and decisive about these things. Certainly, whenever you're ready. Oh no, you don't need this hassle. You're too busy treating your body like a canvas of sucking flesh wounds to deal with your brain. Fine! Will you take some free advice from your brain? Don't trust the think tank. They aren't right. In the brain, I mean. They're fiercely protective of their technology, and none of them is likely to share it willingly. Well, certainly there might be some things I miss about being ambulatory. We have seen some incredible sights, haven't we? Jason Bright and his followers launching into the vast unknown. Helios 1 coming back online. But still, given the tremendous, potentially life-ending peril that went along with those, yes, I'd rather stay here. Fine. I hope you'll pay a bit more attention to me this time around. All right, this shouldn't be too painful. What did you think all those self-preservation instincts were, All those times you thought for a fleeting second, maybe I shouldn't punch that death claw in the face. That was me telling you exactly how I felt before. Well, I suppose you've convinced me well enough. I'll rejoin your body if that's your final decision. Unfortunately, before we get to that stage of the proceedings, we have a problem. Even if I could settle myself back in your skull and reconnect all those pesky nerve endings, Dr. Mobius doesn't have the tools here. We would have to make use of Dr. Klein's lab, and I rather doubt the brains are inclined to share. Well, I suppose I do miss those endorphin rushes when we save the day. All right, what's the plan? We have to do no such thing. Just don't bring them the tools they need to get out. Ah, well, as to that, you'd be surprised how hard a feminine-sounding voice modulator is to find in the Forbidden Zone. It's not as though brain-sustaining life support tanks grow on trees. I had to take what I could get. Very well, let me put this in terms you'll understand. Brain, smart. Heart, stupid. Spine, very stupid. You, exceptionally stupid. Does that explain the matter? Oh, all right. Perhaps I am, but at least I'm logical about it. I don't know. I'm afraid the trauma of our separation rendered me quite insensate. I didn't come around until I was safely ensconced in this tank. I'm quite sure whatever he did was highly scientific, though. I don't have... I have an inferior frontal gyrus wired directly into a speech synthesizing processor. Your heart can't be wired up to a thought synthesizing processor. You can't talk to it. Well, as long as your curiosity is satisfied. Yes. Well, you do know that those particular organs don't have neurons and are thus incapable of speech. Yes? I've been bettering myself, I'll have you know. I've been reading. Actual literature, mind you, not that La Fontaine or Tales of Chivalry drivel. I've been studying the classics, acquiring a solid grounding in medicine and the sciences. Also, I'm fairly certain this tank has been liberally salted with ground mentats. Well, we certainly wouldn't want to strain your comprehension, would we? Don't seem so bad. They vivisected us just to see what would happen. Have you forgotten the lobotomites? The cyber dogs, I assume you saw those. Imagine that kind of science spread across the entire Mojave. Every man, woman, and child we've met reduced to a lobotomite. Is that what you want? Hardly. Dr. Mobius keeps a close optical sensor on the goings-on at the think tank. As soon as he saw the opportunity, he took it. After the think tank extracted me from your skull, they fell to bickering amongst themselves. I'm sad to say we were quite forgotten about. Dr. Mobius saw an opportunity to gain some leverage and had me spirited away to his dome. Well, look, it's all a very complex system of biofeedback and other things I wouldn't expect you to understand. And you're an expert on your own glandular delusions, are you? No, leave this one to an impartial authority. Me? I suppose now that we're reunited, you'll want to fill your torso up with those other meaty parts the think tank took from us. Personally, I think your upgrades are quite a bit better. But now that I'm with you, the Sync's autodock can plug them back in no problem. Right then, off we go. Klein will be in for a nasty shock when he realizes the pacification field won't work on a mind and body reunited. Right then, you'd best be off, hadn't you? The think tank will be waiting. No, don't worry about me. When you're gone, I'll flush myself over to the Sync. It's amazing how far you can get in this place with a good flush. I'll keep myself hidden in the ductwork. Klein won't suspect I'm inside the dome, so he won't know the pacification field no longer works on us. I can also upgrade the Sync's autodock with the procedures to reinstall your heart and spine, assuming you want all that flesh and gristle back. With any luck, I'll see you in the Sync when this is all over. Yes, I rather thought so. By all means, if the idea of spending the rest of your days as a true lobotomite appeals to you. Actually, come to think of it, you probably wouldn't mind that, would you? Ha! Thinking without a brain. The very idea is perverse. Hold that thought. That's almost clever. Oh, had I? What exactly will you do if I don't? Not put me back in that cranial dungeon you call your head? Heavens forbid. Barring the unlikely event that I evolve some sort of rocket-propelled locomotion, I will be here. Ah, lovely. Figured that out, have we? Would you like a cookie? Of course you do. How scintillating. Very well. I suppose I have no choice. Goodbye, peaceful, soothing brain jar. Hello, head wounds and scorpions. And you believe them? Really? I know you were recently deprived of my fabulous advice, but... Really? Once I'm delivered into their clutches, they'll find a way past the radar fence and the whole Mojave will be their playground. And that is assuming, of course, that one of them doesn't take a fancy to our body and decide to slip his own brain into it instead. Oh, lovely. We've reached the mindless violence portion of the program. Tell me, what exactly are you, and I use the word loosely, planning? Fine, I'll try to respect you more. Sir, please tell me we weren't that perverse when I was in your head. Ugh. Anyways, even if that was on the table, we have a problem. That arrangement suits me fine. Do try not to get too many holes drilled in your head, will you? I may want to drop by for sentimental reasons. Is this really what I have to look forward to? I suppose it did. Bravo! You've managed to intimidate the brain in a jar. There go those glands again. Is the endorphin rush you get from doing the right thing really that good? Oh yes, I rather expect we will. We'll be having a very long talk about crawling through old ruins, herring off on missions of revenge. And cazadors. Oh yes, we'll talk a lot about them. Ugh, crawl back in there? Are you mad? I don't know where you've been. For all I know, you're riddled with disease or packing one of those delightful head wounds you seem to attract. I'm not crawling back into your head just to ooze right back out again. Well, maybe next time you hear me telling you that charging a nightkin with a penknife is a bad idea, you'll listen. You wouldn't. That's inhuman. Well, that's a fine how do you do. Me, quote, dick, unquote, as if I'm the one responsible for the way you carry on gadding about the wastes. I'm not the one that makes us clamber around Technus-infested ancient vaults or go charging off to New Vegas on missions of ill-conceived revenge. And have we forgotten who got us shot in the head and buried in a shallow grave? Do you think I enjoyed that little moment? While the brute force approach is a lovely one, really, it won't work. Even if I wanted to settle myself back in your skull and go to all the trouble of reconnecting nerve endings, Dr. Mobius doesn't have the tools here. We would have to make use of Dr. Klein's lab, and I rather doubt the brains are inclined to share. You're a monster! A deranged, self-destructive monster! Ah, yes, there's that greed and general sense of malice. I'd nearly forgotten it. What's the plan, then? Fine, I'll try to respect you more. Ma'am. I'd like to find a nice little place to live, maybe in Good Springs, and settle down where we won't get shot at. Not as often, at any rate. But since that doesn't seem likely, what's your plan? I most certainly am not. I'm the seat of all reason and logic in our little partnership. All those feelings that motivate you, that sense of righteousness and that rush you get when you help someone, do you know where those come from? All those feelings that motivate you, those urges to hurt people, to take and crush and maim, do you know where they come from? All those feelings that motivate you, do you know where those come from? Glands. They come from glands. Free of the tyranny of your ape-like and primitive endocrine system, I can see how foolish your motives are. Fun? Fun? Is tetanus fun? Is rickets? What about sepsis, huh? Enjoy that, do we? The things you do with our body are suicidally dangerous, and if you could silence your glandular impulses, you would hear me screaming at you! Let's see, 4, 5, 8, 1, 5, 1. Yes, that's it. I've calculated pi to the very end. It's not that I want to be a robo-brain exactly, but some treads would be nice. A British tar is a soaring soul, as free as a mountain bird. How's the body doing? Any fresh head wounds I should know about? How are the old batteries holding up, Experiencing any slowdowns yet?
The courier left the brain at the big empty. A strange thing to say, but it was the truth. Brains are less important than they may seem. When the courier's body finally passed, the brain was saddened. It kept on, remembering the vessel that had once contained it. With the courier at the helm, science became a beacon for the future. There was old world blues, and new world hope. And hope ruled the day at Big Mountain. With the courier at the helm, it was all this and more. Old world blues, new world misery. The two became one in the courier's shadow. The courier, organs intact, continued onwards, a little less heavy of step, but with all the organs in the right places, as they should be. After all, brains can develop a life of their own when left to their own thoughts, and the courier's brain was more clever than most. And so it burbled and bubbled inside its tank, smug that it still could dream its future without glands getting in the way. In time, however, it became so self-obsessed, it wondered if perhaps nothing existed except itself. It decided to test this by turning the weapons of the Big Empty against each other and seeing what happened. The answer is lost to history, as is much of the Mojave. Even at the end, when it started to fail, however, the brain resisted going into a floating chassis like the think tank. It never said why. Perhaps it was out of respect for the courier's body. All things must come to an end, and to hang on to the past is something that's not to be undertaken lightly.